Yeah. Yeah, they fired him because he got $1 million never. Well, I bet if you can do it, I didn't. They, we saved it. And we're talking fully above average. Relative to that camp down.
Look.
I did the element.
You ready? Obviously, let people in that we have 25 people.
Right. Call this meeting to order. First order of business will be minutes from our October 19th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Are there any changes? I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved. Second. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. We don't have this room forever today, so we're gonna get right into the short-term rental order. We have a rough draft, and I will stress rough draft. Nobody's going to approve anything today. We're just gonna have a discussion about what we've got and see if there's any changes that need to be made. I'll start with the panel here. Does anybody have any comments that they want to address?
No, I think we've got a good start.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is a good preliminary draft. Probably take some additional work, but I think it's a good plan. Copies to some degree the city of Clayton.
okay. Tony?
No, I agree. I think it's a good start, and I like the approach to it. I mean, putting common sense restrictions on things is the way to go, rather than to try to, force people through fines and other things.
Okay, Bill, did you have any comments?
Yeah, it's a good start for framework there. There are some terminology that may clarify and make consistent with positions we have here in the city. And some of the definitions that we currently operate in. But I agree with some of the companies also, good common sense things. And to me, it's good to be comprehensive, but I also like to simplify things. Since we don't have a big bureaucracy here to administer these ordinances.
Yeah, you know, that's one thing that you can talk about. You don't want to create a bureaucracy that only someone else do.
Right, no,
So,
I understand.
I agree.
All right, in the vein of terminology, I would like to start right out on page 1. Your designated responsible person. The definition we've got here is actually what should be for designated local contact person or representative. The designated responsible person in the body of the draft here actually refers to somebody on the rental side, not on the owner's side. So that's got to be corrected. And then when it comes to designated, when we get the definition right, as far as designated local contact person, there are 13 references in the body of the draft to local contact person. So we need to, I think we need to get something that we need to deal with that person in the same terminology in every case, whether it's designated local contact person, local agent, local contact person, what have you. We just got to get that consistent. Yeah, for example, under purpose and intent, section 2, section 5B, on the top of page 3. The owner shall be required to designate an agent for any short-term rental. That agent is the designated local contact person, correct? Section 4, again, there it refers to property owners, local contact person, or agent, or what have you. We just need to be consistent. So, in the vein of being consistent, what would we like to call this individual?
I like designated local contact.
Okay. As do I.
Yeah.
And we're in agreement that agent, local person, local contact are all one and the same person. Okay. Good, I like that. There again, as I say, there's 13 references to that individual in various forms. And we'll have to go through, figure it all out. Oh, okay, now under, and this is in that same vein. At the top of page 5, paragraph C, we're referring to responsible person. There again, in the interest of being consistent, that should be the designated responsible person. And we're indicating as here in defined, that definition should be under definitions in the top. That is, again, that's the person that representing the people that are renting.
I'm not sure about that. As I read C, it appears to me that every short-term rental shall be limited to a designated responsible person. As that, I mean, I'm thinking that person is the person who is responsible, who is renting that property. Yeah. That's
You're agree.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I misunderstood.
That's the designated, the designated responsible person is the person who is the tenant. And we've indicated we have a definition for designated responsible person on the front that is incorrect. That should be the definition we've got is the designated contact person, local contact. Whereas we still need the definition of designated responsible. We all clear? You having fun yet? All right.
Read that, defined somewhere in. I don't remember reading that.
I think we originally did, and then somehow we missed it.
Okay.
So we'll get back in there. There is another item here that I thought that confused me. And that's, it's section 5. 8. F. On page 6. The completed health department approval form as may be required for large or multiple rental units. Not sure what that's referring to, but it's not something that we have here as far as I know.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Mhm.
The health department has a form that shows the sewer, that shows the septic tank on it. Should have one for every piece of property.
True.
Maybe you just put that on put that as an attachment to the application.
Well, we would, but well, this is referring to something here that
Yeah,
is confusing. We go on to say the completed health department approval form should certify that the septic system is adequate to handle the proposed occupancy. It's the part that's confusing is the reference to large or multiple rental units. It's like multi-family. Counselor, can you shed some light on that?
No, really, I'm not sure why we designated large or multiple use. I
I don't either.
don't think that, to be honest with you. I would just say, completed health department approval form as may be required. Maybe perhaps period, without saying for long.
Okay.
So I can also tell you that, in the valley in Incorporated County, you will not find every septic going in there. I mean, anybody's been here long enough, we've sold several of them where they had to go find them, all they could find was the tanks. So if you're going to make that predicated on attaching that to something, that's something that's probably gonna be a problem in here especially. Because there are so many houses built where John Smith built the house and they put the septic back here and they ran it, Madison buried it. There's nothing on file with them.
In which case it may need an inspection. Yeah, by the way, can we get your name first off?
Mark Wong.
Mark Wellmaker, okay. And this, of course, is the other Steve Mason.
Jim Gibson. I just wanted to comment on what Steve just said, or Mark, excuse me. I contacted the health department. I moved up full time 2.5 years ago, but I've had my house almost 14 years here up on Ridgeville. They have no record of my septic tank. They said they had no idea.
And if they come out and inspect it, they're not gonna, I mean, they're gonna find your tank, but there's no way for them to track you on.
And I spoke to multiple people, so, I mean, I've never had a problem with it, but just a comment.
Well, we may run into some issues, but I think we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be, you know, you may have to go back to the record of how the house was originally configured.
I don't have that in front of me, but just a question. Is there some sort of description on the number of renters or people, occupants on any given stay? In other words, the health department has approved X number of people to stay in this house. Is that in there?
Yes,
Okay.
that and the number of legitimate bedrooms, so.
The reason I ask, years ago, before we moved up here full time, my wife and I, we did put ours in the vacation rental by owner. And, but she vetted anybody that we ever had come up. We never had more than 2 couples, no golf parties, no wedding parties, no, so on and so forth. But, that needs to be addressed as well. I mean, these people, the owners need to vet who's staying at their place. Because you can obviously end up wild parties. Have some real problems.
The problem with that is a lot of these are rented through agencies that are
That's true. Good point.
separated
Good
from
point.
owners.
The reason I mentioned that is because again, for the septic. We never had to worry about it because we never had at the very most 6 people that we know of. And we had neighbors.
Unfortunately, not everybody handles it, but you.
Well, that's true.
Well, it's also, and that goes back to your point about, having a local contact. Because I manage several in here, and part of my job is I check them. So when I read through, if they said, okay, because I get a whole thing from Evolve that said, you have 4 adults, 2 children, and they paid a pet fee. Fantastic. If I go by there and there's 9 cars. I'm gonna knock on the door and go, hey, what's going on?
And that's what we like to see.
That's what goes back to your local. So you'll get rid of a lot of those problems.
Well, getting back to your original point, I think it's gonna be incumbent on the owner. That if they've got a house, that whether or not they've got an inspection of the septic system. If the house was originally built to be a 3-bedroom, for example, they've got 6,
And they finish the bed.
then they've got the responsibility of proving that they upgraded the septic system.
So you're bypassing UPC IAPMO requirements for septic tanks then. You're creating your own, just so I'm clear.
County does it.
Because UPC defines a septic tank size per bedroom, not by individual, by bedroom. Each individual in a house by UPC and IAPMO is 50 gallons a day. So 4-bedroom equivalent of 8 people is what, 400 gallons. So you're bypassing IAPMO and UPC.
Who's speaking, by the way?
This is Sean.
Sean, what's your last name, Sean?
Bar.
I'm sorry?
Bar.
Bar, B-A-R-R?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. We're trying to keep our minutes up to date here. Okay. We did get some response from one homeowner regarding section I on this same page regarding insurance policies. And the fact that, well, we're requiring an insurance policy that does not expire during the term, not the term of the rental, but the term of the short-term license, which we would run a calendar year, and the insurance policies, of course, are only good for 1 year and would expire at any given time during that year. I'm not sure how we address that issue. It's got to, we've got to get copies of the rule about that policy. That might be a question for Doug.
Yeah, a couple. Questions, comments, Chairman,
Back on.
from the audience. First was Holly Style, Mayor Style. Can the designated responsible person be the owner and the rep? Question mark.
Yes.
The second question.
If they're within 25 miles.
Mhm.
This.
Yeah.
You said within 25 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have a Richard Bright, well, regarding bedrooms, my house has 4 original bedrooms. The 2 downstairs don't have windows, would there be a grandfather clause?
No, that would conflict with fire codes, I believe.
I believe the house was built originally, it hasn't been modified. It's built in 1980 and that's the way the bedrooms were built. I don't know how I would dig into the mountain to make windows for those bedrooms.
Life safety. Everything requires there to be an exit, so.
Uh-huh.
2 exits, Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think you've got legal bedrooms.
if you live there, that's fine. but you can't-
Isn't that new code? The code was not that way when the house was built.
That may be.
I honestly don't.
Still
know.
fire department issue.
Yeah, it's a life safety issue. You know, I don't see how the city could, approve of a known safety issue.
No problem.
When
with
you
I don't
list
think-
your house for sale, you cannot list it as 4-bedroom if the 2 bedrooms do not have either egress. That's just, it's not, it'll be considered a 2-bedroom with 2 additional bonus rooms, but you cannot list it as a 4-bedroom if they don't have egress. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. George is a little behind, but you couldn't rent that in other states as a 4-bedroom because of that, because of the safety issue there. The grandfathering is kind of moot because it's not legally a bedroom.
I think that is correct.
I guess I'll have to dig into that further and see what the history was and what the code is.
I would do that if I were you.
Could we identify who's taking the?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Who
That was Mr. Brightwell, I believe, Richard Brightwell, the gentleman who asked the question about the grandfather. And I believe
Yes.
that was Stahl, I believe that was Stahl who provided the,
Yes, it was. Thank you.
react. Had more questions coming in.
Keep going.
This is from Shirley Baum, I believe, BLHM. Would a statement by the insurance company be sufficient that the house is restored as a short-term rental?
Right. Is there a need to have an actual copy of the policy if the insurance company will send you a letter saying, I have a valid insurance policy as a short-term rental?
I would believe that you could get an insurance certificate from your insurance company. But it would have to designate when that policy expired and so forth. And
What if
fact-
what if the policy expires in the middle of the license year
That's
and
what
I
we're
pay-
talking about right now.
and I pay the premium and it's, continues? I'm not sure what your intent is to say that it can't expire in the license year.
That's exactly why we brought it up.
Good. Thank you.
Because I think if the policy does expire I think we just need to say that the insured needs to get us a new certificate of insurance.
Within 5 days.
Within-
So are you looking for the city to be an additional insured then, like on a certificate of liability? It's really not the hazard you're concerned about, it's the liability. So it sounds like you're asking people to list the city of Sky Valley as an additional insured. And for
And
that,
that's
they
that.
could get
I
a
don't think
certificate.
the city of Sky Valley has an insurable interest. So.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know if you do or not, but that sounds like what you're asking for when you're asking for insurance. You're asking to be listed as an additional insured. Otherwise, it's kind of delving into what is the point of that clause, I guess is my question from the city's point of view.
That the homeowner has notified their insurance company that they are doing rentals.
But what does the city have to do with that? That's really I'm just asking. I do have an insurance company that knows what my rentals do, that my house is rented. However, why does the city care about that? Because that's really between the homeowner and the insurance company. If your house burns down and you haven't been insuring it as a short-term rental, then the insurance company is not going to pay you. That has nothing to do with the city of Sky Valley. And I don't know.
It does if we've got a burned out shell that's uncovered by insurance and it's going to sit there for a good long while. So yes, in that respect, the city does that.
Okay. All right.
Reasonable.
That makes sense. I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Liability insurance. That's really what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's liability primarily.
Oh. Can I go ahead?
That's all right.
Can I throw my hat?
Sure.
We got a couple of comments, and by the way, I think this is a good idea, so in no way do I mean any of this is criticism, just ideas to think about. One, is to define how much on, well, to prohibit on-street parking as a regular basis.
Restrictions in.
Yeah. Two, we've got a couple of houses on Sky Valley on Pleasant Mountain that have lights on the exterior, and they don't go off during the night, nor do they go off when the place isn't rented. So I don't know exactly how you address that, but that's a concern. Perhaps needs to be addressed.
I'm not sure that concern would change any if it was the homeowner with it, as opposed to a tenant.
Yeah. You know, and I agree with you about the terms. I had written that down. Maybe just say owner, renter, local contact person. I don't know, but anyhow. The other thing I wondered about, on page 1, curtilage. I looked that up. Jan didn't know what it was. Jan, my wife is a real estate appraiser, for those of you who don't know her well. She didn't know the term. Well, I looked it up. Best I can tell, maybe that's a fenced yard. And if that's what it is, then why don't we just say a fenced yard? Let's see. Go on. Oh, and under purposes, perhaps you need to define maximum, that you want to define, maximum allowable occupancy and maximum parking.
What a bunch of shit.
Oh, I was going to suggest, well. I need to do that one. Yeah, I think I did. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any more in the computer there?
There's some dialogue between some members.
So the owner could be the representative, that's good.
There was a couple of comments that have already been addressed, but I don't see new questions. I'm on.
Section 7, excuse me. Paragraph B on page 8 at the bottom. Is it realistic to think that we can get name, address, and occupant and so forth of each vehicle on the property?
That kind of goes back to creating a big hurdle for
I think so too.
city administration.
I could see getting it from the designated responsible person,
Right.
The renter.
the renter.
Around
The
the-
head room. But this.
Maybe
you know,
just put that in parentheses, renter.
I think this talks specifically about the owner of the contact person having that.
I'm not even sure it's feasible if they can get it.
You check in the hotel, you have to tell them what kind of car you have. what
Yeah.
service it is, so-
Yeah, and again, I think, you know,
Yeah, but we're not hotels.
person that would be the valid.
Hotel would have staff to do that. I mean, the question is, okay, so you got 4 cars parked out there. Who's gonna check? Who's gonna check? You know, other resources. But I think from a big picture standpoint, if we get too many cars. Right. Based on this ordinance, then that's an issue that we should get in.
Well, I think the idea of having the responsible person's vehicle information is that should there be a problem that you need to follow up with later, i.e. somebody stealing the mail. You know, you've got a legitimate person to go after. You look like you had a thought there.
I was just gonna add, Mr. Chairman, I know that the vehicle tag stuff, may need to be revisited if somebody's coming in that's renting a car. My wife, just a side note, she hit a deer last week. She's renting a car. It's got a Florida tag. I have no idea what that tag is.
Or you?
Or somebody's flying in from Atlanta. They rent a car and it's got a South Dakota tag on it.
Yeah.
You run the tag,
It's complicated.
yes, so.
Let's try to look for the. Rental agency, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think the officer Ron back there wants to go around and check license plates and all the cars. Are you Ron?
I can hear it there.
Yeah, you can see that being problematic. On page 9, 5, section 10, 5B, animals running at large. I did get one comment from a resident as to probably an easier way to address that second sentence there. Animals running at large are subject to seizure. How about animals running at large outside the curtilage? There's that word.
Yeah.
Are subject to seizure.
The property.
I agree on.
Page 9, section 10, 5B.
Or you just say that we shot.
That's just cleaning up the language. Let me see what else I've heard from people.
Just as a matter of information, if you're gonna quote our code like in FPA 101, or building code, you probably need to quote what is issued the date. If they change.
Well, if they change, then this would change with it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, let me just give you a little sound back. One comment on the last topic. When you go to a motel or a hotel, you register at a hotel, you get your car license tag, right? So what is the procedure for people signing in to one of these? I.e. the renter or the guest who is signing in. And you have 10
And
people.
really, other than subject to this, it's between the homeowner and the guest as to what they signed.
Why is a standard procedure in the hospitality industry for them to give this information? And if we were talking
Well,
about.
in the hospitality industry, it's a little different because you're checking into that owner's property. You're not checking in, those people, when they're checking into a hotel, aren't going over to the city and giving that information to the city with a hotel.
Right. But I don't see that.
In this case, we're talking about the homeowner being that hotel operator. So yeah, they're the ones that have, you should be getting that.
Well, if you're going through, apparently you haven't used these platforms much, but if you're going through a platform like Vrbo or Airbnb, your profile is verified and a lot of information is collected, although I don't think they collect your driver's license or anything like that because that's kind of invasive. The reason that you show your driver's license at a hotel is to verify that you're the actual person who made the reservation, not somebody who overheard them talking about it at a restaurant or somewhere else. So that's the reason for showing your ID at a hotel, just to verify that you're the actual person. That's eliminated in renting a short-term rental because you're providing the person with whom you've communicated regularly the information to access the hotel. It's not for any legal reasons. It's just to make sure that you are indeed the person who registered at the hotel and that name, that you're not a third party that just knows about the reservation. And that's improbable completely impractical for someone who is running a short-term rental in 90% of cases because you're not there when they check in. That's the whole point of these platforms or communicating with them electronically so that you provide the information. There's really no way to require that for somebody who's doing a short-term rental.
I think there is, and basically, if there is a sign in, like, you know, I guess you sign in and you put your stuff there. I'll give you an example why I think that there's it's a bigger problem than y'all tend to be thinking about. There's a place down, it's at the intersection of West Sugar Bush and Saddleback. And I've seen 10 trucks in the parking lot one night on the weekends, and then they're not there anymore. So, I mean, it's not like one person is checking in for 10 families or whatever. So what's wrong with having some type of a log that people check into and then it's collected at the end of the stay?
Because they're not gonna sign that.
Who's maintaining the law?
Yeah, well, who's gonna, I mean, that's well and good in theory, but only the person that logged that in is gonna go in there, he's gonna sign in. All 10 of those trucks are not gonna sign that log. The only way you can do that it would be with a ring. A couple of my clients have that, the ring is external. And when they check in, she can look out the parking lot and go, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a couple. Now there's another couple and the dog, wait a minute, and then she gets on the horn. That's the
There again,
only-
we're talking about what's going on between the homeowner and yes.
Correct.
And if the city is not maintaining,
No,
There are comments.
well, we have one in the back here as well.
Years ago, we had a garbage check and you had to in the garden check the license. And I don't know if that's feasible. I understand we have 700 vacation money to.
A, we don't have that car check anymore, and B, it didn't cover all of Sky Valley.
That's
So-
true, that's true.
and C, we really can't afford it. City budget.
Well, the other thing is we're in
Very
municipalities,
expensive.
not a resort, just like the city. And you couldn't limit.
That would work nicely in a condo.
I was just gonna say, Mr. Chairman, there's several comments that state that this information is tracked by the booking sites.
Some of
Or I guess your mainstream ones, but I just want to share that. And then there's a question in regards to section 9 of abandonment. What is the purpose of this? And of course, abandonment, it says. The abandonment or failure to use a property as a short-term rental for a period of 7 consecutive months. During any period to be deemed an abandonment of the short-term rental use. And an owner to be required to obtain a new short-term rental license for the property. So the question is, what is the purpose of that?
Okay, that's another one that came out of the other ordinance.
It is.
Plagiarized.
I don't know if we need that because the license all has to be renewed every year now. So it's got almost no.
Almost out of that anyway.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
I don't guess we need it. Okay. All in favor of striking that? Okay. Through my notes here to see if I've got anything.
And
Yes.
would it be reasonable to ask that the owner or the designated person keep a record of the designated responsible person information?
I think we have it.
Name, address.
I think that.
And as far as that goes, they can take a picture of the driver's license and text it to them.
No.
I'm coming up here for that. Why would you do?
Again, all that information is collected by the rental site. How would you possibly take a picture of someone's driver's license? And that's all on the rental site. I'm not aware of any online rental platform that does not require information from you in order to book on their site. If you know of one, please let me know, but I don't know of a single one where you can just log on and be random and not verify who you are and book a place.
Well, we're not suggesting that the city is going to collect that information, that the person responsible for handling that rental would be the one doing that. And yes, some of the rental sites do, not all of them.
Airbnb and VRBO both do. They have access to phone number, address, profiles. I have a picture.
So they follow it anyway, so.
Okay.
And credit card and debit card.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. On page 11, section 13(9), about swimming pools. I don't think we have any swimming pools here other than that condo. But people may have spas, and that should probably be included in that.
I don't think it hurts to have it.
Also, where can we obtain a copy of this document that you're going through? Because I'm not aware of a way to get.
City website, the city knows.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I've got through all my columns. Don, you had some that you had brought up, if we addressed them all.
Well, there were a number of things that were raised at the last zoning meeting, and I had asked that the city attorney address certain of those, and I know that those have been sent to the city attorney.
And Jason has one, so.
I had a conversation with the kid today. He had reviewed the ordinance. I will follow up with him to make sure that your questions are answered. He did say that, as we all discussed today, it is very much still in draft form, not ready for a decision, but they said it's legally sound, which that should give some comfort as we're moving forward, but I will definitely ask him to answer your question.
For the questions that I posed, the questions that were raised at the last zoning meeting by, I think.
And I asked him to be here today, well, and he had previously.
Those are not necessarily, questions that I had, but questions that other people have raised. And some of those are legitimate questions for discussion, I'm sure, by this committee.
Okay. You want to bring them up?
Well, I think we ought to wait until we get the response from the city attorney. No need to discuss them if they're not legally appropriate.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to go on?
I've got a question. You talk about in here, in purpose and intent, we talk about payment of required excise and occupation tax fee. And I'm not sure that language is specific to what we're doing. Yeah. Occupation tax is something completely different. And we do that. But hotel motel tax fees are required, not by us, but by the county. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that somebody who's smarter than me understood that language and make sure that it's required there. And makes sense.
What page is that on?
It's right up front in the purpose and intent section.
Okay. And most of the platforms say that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We do have some more questions.
Question was asked, does the term zoning administrator need to be defined? I know there's interchangeable language here, sometimes referred to as the other different zoning. Maybe, I think, maybe say city manager, maybe city clerk, but we may just want to reference authorized city personnel. That way you're not narrowing it down to who
Specific type.
person, because it may, it may be a situation where the policeman can go, or code enforcement officer, or whoever's available. Um, There's a question here. What is the reason behind this proposal? I presume this is from Scott Davis, I presume, when he said proposal, the ordinance. What is the reason behind it? Want to try to answer that, or somebody? want to try to answer
The
that?
purpose and intent it is designated here. I think, well, yeah, the purpose and intent under section 2, section A, I think probably answers that.
Another question that's brought, and I actually had this conversation with another resident on, but, there's some discussion in here, and again, I just want to stress. This is the city of Clayton's ordinance, not picking on them, but we use it as a baseline. As we all know, there's things that need to be changed. There shall be only one designated contact person, why only one? What about sickness and vacation? I had that same conversation with a concerned citizen yesterday. May want to look at that, because if somebody's not available, you may need to have a second phone, then the third phone. So,
Well, there needs to be one primary at least.
I think the
Primary,
I
secondary.
think there will be at least one primary person that you look to.
I think it's unrealistic to expect somebody from the city to start going down a huge list of people that they may or may not reach.
A question by Benita Cotton, why do owners need to relicense in the event of a change of designated individual? Obviously, we need to know if there is a change, but that may need to be looked at, why it says relicense.
License may not be the right.
Yeah, I don't know where that says.
Where is that?
That's I'll be back. I'm making up my notes here as we go back.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Jason?
Why do owners need to relicense in the event of a change of designated individual? Maybe, obviously, we need to be updated, but I think that if there's language that says relicense, maybe that's, that needs to be looked
Yeah,
at.
we can look at
Maybe
that.
that's the proper term, but
Yeah. I will look for that.
I think at some point in time too, we might need to discuss whether or not we need to designate a zoning administrator / enforcer. I agree that, you know, we have some different areas that maybe the police need to look at something and the city manager need to look at something, but I think that that's something that we might want to discuss at some point as to whether or not we need to have a single zoning administrator, enforcer, maybe on a part-time basis that we look after these regulations, because they're pretty intense in terms of.
Well, there's a question here, it's very timely you asked that question. When will the Sky Valley Council consider this ordinance? I would say at such time that it's felt that this is. I would say, I think I had this conversation. We're probably looking, I think, springtime, probably late winter, springtime. I don't want to be presumptuous there, but obviously. We are almost January. Does Sky Valley have the staff in time to perform these inspections for a timely license renewal each year? That is something we're talking about now. So as you all, many of you may know, Bob Powers sadly passed. Bob worked about 16 hours a week. He and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago about these duties are added, that's gonna add more time needed. So, yeah, obviously, the common sense or the consensus would be, it would probably be the code enforcement person to do that. In fact, got the challenge of now trying to find somebody. But it would definitely increase hours. I mean, anytime you add regulatory requirements, you're gonna have somebody that's checking those boxes, looking at things. I've had a very brief conversation with our fire chief. There might be some things that they might do. I'm not obligating anybody, but I know that they do look at fire extinguishers and smoke detectors. There may be some things that we can we can tag team on, but those are questions that will need to be answered, hence why we're here.
I think it makes sense. That we have that one designated person. To your point. So that citizens know where. And then it gets coordinated there, and obviously. Code enforcement, we're gonna have to add some of those.
Question, Debbie. I don't want to butcher her name. How many issues that Sky Valley have with short-term rental, but do not see any on the monthly police report? Like just a couple of bad apples, for lack of a better term,
Few people spoil it.
that's brought this to the forefront. I don't know if, Officer Bonds is here. I don't know. I don't put you on the spot, but that's the question there. Do you have any comments on that? How often these things come to your attention, sir?
I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
Is there a specific number? How many issues have arisen that has brought this to the forefront, the need for this?
I think what we've heard is a number of citizens complaining about the parking issues, the noise issues, et cetera, and there seems to be a proliferation of we actually have investors coming in and doing this, operating that business. So I think it's important that we try to get ahead of this, get some sort of ordinance in place so that we shoot down some potential problems before they become really rapid.
This is, excuse me. This is Rudy Macy. Can I make a comment? May I?
Certainly.
So we have a rental house across the street from us, and we have a rental house next door. It seems like the people that rent for a week or longer seem to be more like families, and I've even invited them over to my house. So I don't have a problem with them. I always go out and greet them. I'm nice to everybody. The rentals that come in on the weekend are partiers, are mostly younger, come up from Atlanta, and they're going all night. And I put it in the meeting chat. We have to turn our TV on if they're in the house next door, because our bedroom's on that side, and try to sleep with the TV on, because we can't sleep because of the noise and the racket. And probably what we should have done was call the Sky Valley Police, which we have never done because we try to be good neighbors, and that would show up in the police report, because that frequently happens only on the weekend renters, not on the ones that seem to rent longer. And I know we can't put a limit on how many days are allowed to be rented. The other gripe that I have, since they were asking why you don't see this on a police report, and I didn't even think of putting on a police report, is when they put their garbage out, they don't take it to the compactor, and they put it out in plastic garbage bags, and the animals get in it. And then I'm cleaning up garbage out of my yard and out of the neighbor's yard to make it. And it's a pain in the butt. I hate doing it. And so Benita, thank you for saying that. Benita said, well, the owner should be fined if that happens. So we could take a picture of it and send it to Sky Valley, to the police. I don't know how that would work, but those are my concerns and why I'm on this call. Thank you. Can I make a comment?
Sid,
I'd like to make a comment.
that's fine. Who's speaking, please?
Gary Martasio.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, so this gentleman just had a complaint about a neighbor. Instead of penalizing everyone that takes care of their property, something like that to me is noise ordinance or code enforcement. Why don't we address the isolated problems instead of putting a proposal like this together that's going to just discourage people, sell their properties, lose revenue in the city, the county, jobs, just overall has it been discussed and just overall looked at what it could affect Sky Valley? Let's not penalize those that take care of their property. Make sure the tenants in there are taking care of not only the property, but the city, instead of isolated incidents that I just heard. If that's the case, yeah, they should be penalized. Why is it affecting everyone? Why does it have to affect everyone? It's discouraging. I mean, we'll go along with it, whatever. We've never had one problem with any, because we won't allow that to happen. And I'm sure 99% of the other owners that rent out short-term rentals are the same. You're gonna have a bad apple. You're gonna have a bad apple that own the house permanently. Has that been given thought? You know, that's just my opinion, and we'll do whatever we have to do, but to penalize because one person puts out their garbage, penalize that property owner, not those that do what's right and pay taxes. Thank you.
Agreed, because I have a big sign on my rental that by the trash cans, which I do have one, but there's a big sign that says, do not leave trash on these premises. If you do, I'm going to keep some of your deposit. It has to be taken down. I don't want them leaving it in my house, which happened one time, and I don't want them leaving it out for my neighbors to have exactly what Rudy just described happen. So again, it is the bad apples, and they need to be taken care of. I mean, I'm not for reasonable regulations, but to some of the stuff that's in this right now, which by the way, I could not find it on the website. So if someone can just email it to me or direct me specifically to where I could locate it, some of that stuff that's in there is ridiculous, and it's not, the city doesn't enforce the laws they have now as far as rental tax. And I question whether they're, it's ridiculous to enact a bunch of regulations that you cannot or don't have manpower to enforce. And really that aren't necessary, as we've talked about, for the majority of the people who are renting out their property.
I couldn't agree more with that statement.
And
We're the
John-
same way. You put out garbage and animals get at it and they tear it up, we're gonna keep your deposit. I can't speak for everyone else, but I would think that 90% or even higher don't not want any damage to their property or want their property to have garbage thrown over. And noise ordinance, we would not tolerate it. That's me personally, and I can't speak for everyone else. You're gonna have bad apples. You're gonna have bad neighbors that are there permanently. So, I mean, yes, reasonable restrictions and ordinance, I get, but this, it's discouraging. It's gonna be discouraging. So I think you should give it some thought. And is it even legal? Is it even legal? Has a lawyer looked at this?
Yes.
Thank you.
The city attorney has looked at this again on the draft, that he did say that it is legally sound. That should be encouraging, but it does need to be tweaked, obviously, while we're here. So I wanted to address the question about where it's at. Under city notices, if you go to skyvalleyga.com, city notices, we have a lot of things on there, obviously. It's being changed. The first notice is about the culvert replacement on Ridge Pole. You probably see a photo of a culvert. It's generalized. Below that photo, it says, please see the draft short-term rental ordinance that will be up for discussion this Wednesday by the Planning and Zoning Commission at 2 p.m. And then it's hyperlinked SV SDR working draft. So
Yeah, it's got a picture that says draft. And you can click on that.
yeah, so but it's below the photo of the culvert being replaced. But it is there. It's kind of, it wasn't meant, it's not hidden, but it is in between several other things. We're constantly updating the website as things happen, but this was put up a few days ago. That's why it's kind of fell below other things, but it is there. And but if somebody wants to, we can get you a copy of it if you have a problem finding it. But it is there on the website.
Here's the issue, if they see that it's a fault, Yeah, we had a comment a moment ago about, the ordinance that we're looking at might be onerous to property owners who want to rent. I'd be interested to know exactly what is it about this that you think is overburdensome?
I'll speak for me. One, I'm an individual owner and I've got one property I rent. I live close by, but I'm gonna have to jump through a bunch of hoops now and I have a full-time job. So as I think Gary said, it's discouraging for an individual to have to go through all these hoops for following the rules. And then going back to what Gary said, this is discouraging for a lot of people. What's going to happen? You've already seen it in markets like Miami, in New York, where individuals are selling out to large companies. They're selling out to corporations because they're the ones that can handle this. They're the ones that have the manpower to have these designated agents. They're the ones that have the manpower to make sure there's somebody always ready to staff. So if you want to turn Sky Valley into some big corporation where you're going to have a bunch of, a big company coming in, managing and owning, essentially probably dropping, rates and dropping value at some point, then that's what this is going to lead to. I do not think that for the most people in Sky Valley that do VRBO, most of them are probably 1-2 houses. I know I'm one house and I spend as much time up there as I can because it's my house. But I just think this is a little over the top, what we're trying to accomplish. So, and you mentioned, somebody mentioned lawsuits. I did some research on this yesterday. There's been several lawsuits already in New Jersey, New York, Hawaii. You can go look up to where the city actually lost. City lost $500,000 in legal fees and back rentals to a homeowner in New Jersey. So I don't know what the legality is. I hope that the lawyers are looking at it with a fine tooth comb, but it's worrisome for, somebody that just has one house that's looking just to, hey, we have good renters. We've always had good renters. So that's just my take on it.
That was Sean Barr, for the Sean Barr. I'm just, for the record.
When we first started this conversation, there were 2 or 3 significant issues that popped up, more than, the garbage thing and all that. Too many cars parked on the street, which was an issue. The noise, we have a noise ordinance that maybe needs some more teeth into it. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's worth our discussion maybe to go, well, what are the top 2 or 3 issues we really need to solve here? And consider maybe making this a simpler process and giving some teeth to our enforcement here to really address those big issues that we're having. Just a thought. Okay.
Byron again. Regarding what this gentleman said on using the deposit as leverage in the woman as well. The only times we ever had any issues at all, we dangled that deposit issue out there, and that squelched it. And then we got to where we did this for 5 years because we weren't living here at the time. And it got to where we had a lot of, recurring visitors, retirees. Again, we vetted it extensively. Not everybody can do that, but Verbo, Airbnb, these others, any of the reputable organizations, they've got some teeth in the game as well, skin in the game. So they use their teeth. They do the same thing. They're charging these people and they can penalize them as well. But I have a question. Every month while we were doing this, my wife would send a check to Elisa, for the taxes. Every single month. I'm curious, has the city got a handle on what kind of revenue this is generating currently? Is it public information? I'm just, because I have no idea.
It's on the side on the budget.
Is it?
Yeah.
We took in approximately $75,000 last year.
Okay.
obviously it's still being tabulated because this year's not over. Of that, just on a side note, we are required by law to contribute 2/5 of that, or 40%, to a designated economic development entity. So of that 75,000, about 30,000 went to Ford Raven, which is our designated economic vehicle. And then the other 45,000 went into the general fund. So,
But I like your suggestion, try and. This is a draft, I understand that, I don't have a hard copy with me right now, but. As you get more into it, I like, keep it simple, do the real basics. With the attorney, with input, but keep it as simple as you can.
Well, and to the gentleman or whoever it was, I'm sorry, I believe it was the gentleman who asked about what's onerous about this, going back to collecting the taxes. The way that the current requirements for collecting the taxes for the city are very onerous. And even though we're collecting $75,000, it should be much, much more than that, because I can guarantee you that most of the people who are renting through Verbo and Airbnb, they do not collect the taxes for Sky Valley. They collect them for Georgia and for Raven County, but they do not collect them for Sky Valley, nor do they remit them, or at least they didn't the last time I looked into this. And then the requirement for the owners is to every month send a report of the monthly rental income you had, even if it was zero, and send that in. And honestly, that's completely ridiculous. The states allow you to do it on an annualized basis when you have a very small amount of income. And since you're looking at changing that, I think you would have a lot more cooperation and actually paying the city what's owed if you did it on an annual basis. Because unless you're a big investor that has 10 houses and is constantly running them privately, where no taxes are being collected by the platform, then it's just too much paperwork. So I just said to people, you have to rent through Verbo. I can't be bothered with the taxes. And they're not paying Sky Valley. And that could be handled too. I mean, you could approach them and say, hey, you're not collecting the taxes that are required by our entity, and we need you to, because that's how the states got them to start cooperating with that. So, even though we're getting revenue, we're still missing revenue because of our practices and the fact that, people aren't honest. They're not paying them when they're due. So
What you're saying, Carla, kind of belies the fact that Airbnb and Verbo are doing everything perfectly. Obviously, they're not.
well, they're not doing it perfectly, but the state and the counties, made a deal with them that says if you're going to operate, you have to collect the taxes and pay for it. You can opt out of that on those platforms, but then you have to monitor that yourself. They're not collecting them for Sky Valley. And if it was annualized for Sky Valley, I think more people would be compliant to pay the taxes. Also, our formula is very antiquated because it's 5% of the first 10 nights, and after that it doesn't apply. Figure out some small percentage and do it on the whole thing. Like it doesn't really make sense. Just my thoughts.
But it complies with the state law is what it does.
Well, the state law is so much for occupancy per night. It's not based on a sliding scale like that. I'm not aware of that, but as far as so much per night. So
This per night, and it only drops off after you've exceeded, if the rental exceeds the short term aspect of it.
After
10
29
nights, right, which is 10 nights. That's what it is in Sky Valley. And I don't think that's the way it is for Georgia, but I'm not sure.
in Georgia, after 29 days, the 30th day, it becomes tax exempt because they consider it permanent.
Right.
Even in a hotel.
So there's no sliding scale. It's one or the other, short term or not.
Okay. Well, again, Verbo has figured out how to do that. So I don't use Airbnb as much, but they figured out how to collect it and pay it. So I feel like they could do that for Sky Valley as well. And again, if you have being required to submit a report that says you had no rental income is ridiculous every single month. That's a piece of ridiculous paperwork that nobody needs. Especially somebody like me and Sean and a bunch of other people on this call who have one rental, maybe two.
You know, I'm sympathetic to that, but you have to look at yourself as a business owner. And all business owners have to file those reports. I mean, if you have no employees, you still file that report every month. So, you know, just look at it like you're running a business, and you know, those things are going to be
Well, I'm
required.
running 6 businesses, so I guess that's the problem. But okay, yeah, I hear.
Got 6 forms.
Yeah.
One
All right,
other
good
issue,
stuff.
at least on our street, is speeding. And that's a relative term, but the thing is, the nature of our streets is they don't lend themselves to going at all over the speed limit. And we've got old people walking up and down the streets. And people walking their dogs. You know, and so,
Well, you know, and now you're talking traffic enforcement. That's a whole other issue.
yeah.
Steve, I'd like to make a comment on that too, if I may. I agree, the comments about short-term rentals and why there is resistance to them. And one of the big issues for me, we've been in Sky Valley for close to 20 years, is the amount of traffic and speed. There is the issue about parking, and there is the issue about just congestion. And I don't know how you deal with this, but those are major issues.
Yeah, those are issues that the short-term rental ordinance.
Yes. And in my opinion, it's not up to the city, where certainly a large city have to be chasing the renters or the short-term owners. It's the responsible of the short-term renters to, you know, discipline themselves so we don't have these issues. And somehow the responsibility is up to the owners.
Well, and approach, you know, I mean, some of it, a lot of it has to do with what kind of owner. I mean, I live in a more or a less populated area, more remote area of Sky Valley than many people do. So I know that lends itself to having, you know, misbehavior. And I have told all my surrounding neighbors that if you have issues with my rentals, you need to call me, because I don't want those people acting like fools in my house. It's an investment, and I really don't know that anybody, regardless of how many properties they own, wants people tearing it up. And I understand it's awkward to approach people in person, but if you reached out to the owner yourself and said, hey, did you know that this is happening? And maybe they do and maybe they don't. But, you know, reaching out to them and saying, you know, this is disturbing my quality of life. I mean, you know, you might get cussed out, Gordon, or not. You're an awfully nice man. I would hate to think that would happen to you, but we all know what kind of people are out there. But at the same time, you know, it has to start neighbor to neighbor first is the proper way in my mind. And then from then on, you know, I would be horrified if somebody disturbed the peace in my area. I realize, and I don't think I'm unique. I think the people that are bad apples are the ones who aren't here and have 6 or 8 properties, and they don't have a personal connection in the neighborhood. And so they need to get one, because people need to say, look, this is not acceptable. And if you don't police your people, then we're going to, because of these kinds of behaviors, this kind of ordinance is being considered. And I don't think you want that.
Yes, we have one short-term rental. They do a wonderful job, not an issue, but we have several others that do not. And of course, it's the increased traffic. It's and not knowing, you know, we're used to an area where we know the cars coming down the road. People understand slow up, but it has changed in the last couple of years. And short-term rental people have to address those issues. You know,
No, I got hit head on Knob Drive over that Sky to Summit weekend because there was some kid driving his car in the middle of the road and not paying attention.
yes.
And here for that race.
We're getting off track. Let's,
Okay, sorry.
Agree with Carla.
There was just a comment that seems that the consensus is target the problem, not everyone. just a generalized comment, but, that's been shared before.
All right. Anybody else have anything to offer? Out there?
I have a
Okay.
question on the first page where the definition is of a bedroom, having a minimum 2 means of the egress to include a door and a window to the outside. And then on page 7, under the license conditions, number 4, every sleeping quarter shall have, with fiber lines, sorry. Each sleeping quarter shall have at least one operable window or door for emergency escape that opens directly to the exterior of the structure. So it's a little bit of conflicting definition there. If you could address that.
No, the key is, you need 2 means of egress. One can be the door and one the window.
Okay, but just one to the outside. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Wanted to make sure, because on the front page, it looked like you needed 2 means to the outside.
Well, outside the bedroom, I guess. I see what you're saying. And we can,
Just checking. Thank
we'll clean
you.
that up. We'll clean that up a little bit.
All right.
Okay. Anything else?
This is Benita. I made an observation earlier that it might be a good idea to have somebody from VRBO or Airbnb come in on a Zoom meeting with you and explain to the commission the steps that they take to verify renters and IDs and public safety, so that so many of these steps that are in these ordinances could actually be unnecessary and save both owners and the city a lot of cost. So if the city could reach out to somebody from one of those short-term rental companies to explain their process, it would be helpful, I think.
We'd love to hear from them, but we're getting away from the fact that VRBO and Airbnb aren't the only 2 games in town. Whatever we do here has got to deal with everyone, not just those 2 entities.
Yeah, you could have your own website.
Exactly. So we've got to cover everything. All right, is there anything else? Okay. Are we all in town next month, or is when? Third Wednesday next month is just a few days before Christmas. It'd be the 21st.
Okay.
You're here. I'm not. One not. Bill, you said you are, yes. I think you'll be here. Okay. That's quorum. So would you like to set the next meeting date for December 21st? And go back to 10 a.m. That work for everybody? Yeah. And here. Could you coordinate that for us? Take care of it. Thank you, sir. All right. That's everything. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I think that includes a second. All right, all in favor? Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank all you guys too for coming.